Welcome to the Soberish Uprising. My name is Holly Krivo, a former heavy drinker who started a Soberish Uprising of her own over 2 years ago, and everything in her life has changed. On the Soberish Uprising, we tell stories of finding freedom from alcohol, exploring our relationship with alcohol, all with no judgment, making it our best power move. So today I am joined by my amazing friend, Vaughn Piero. Vaughn is a healer, a priestess, and soul alchemist who works with the star energies of the cosmos for greater wisdom, light, and healing. Even as I say it, I get very ethereal. So welcome, Vaughn.
Thank you. As you say it, I get all like, ooh.
Such a I love it. So we connected probably 2 years ago at a retreat and have stayed in touch. I was on your podcast. You have a podcast called Cosmic Healing, which is phenomenal. We will link that. I love it. It's just phenomenal. So I've kept in touch with you there. And then we've had talks on being soberish. So thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am so fascinated with this conversation and this movement. And I just think it's really important that we bring alcohol and our relationship with alcohol, where it's okay to talk about, how we're really feeling. I mean, because I think so many things that we don't talk about are the things that have shame around it, and so the more we talk about things, the more we can release shame around certain topics and stuff like that.
It's so fascinating. What came to me as you said that is we talk about food, we talk about relationships, we talk about all these things that we are in relationship with, but for whatever reason, alcohol, we're like, no, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like alcohol and money. Nope.
Hard pass, even though it's two things that most of us always deal with in some way or the other, right?
Right.
Well, before we get into it, I would love to hear this. This is still something I've experienced. You've had a magnificent impact on my healing. But if somebody's listening and they're like, what are the cosmos? Like, what are the cosmos? Like, share that before we get into all the other stuff.
The cosmos. It's beyond this physical world that we're living in right here, right now. Like we are very connected and aware of our humanness, of just like, this is who we are, what we do, and the structure and the flow, and that 3D world of what we know as our reality. And then when I'm talking about the cosmos, I'm talking about infinite possibilities. Like that's where the magic and miracles are. That's where we have access to unknown possibilities. Like when we're here, we know, we open a door and we know what's behind it. When we're up there in the cosmos, playing in the multidimensional realms, we open doors and we're like, oh, I wonder what's behind there. And it just is such an element of surprise and excitement. And it's so much more fun. I mean, we are humans, so we have to live in this world, but it's so fun to be able to navigate, playing up in the stars and being a human being as well.
I love it. And I've experienced your breath work. How else do you get people into the cosmos?
Oh, well, breath is first and foremost everything that I do. Like even, if I'm facilitating a class for 100 people or 10 people or one-on-one, like in everything that I do, we are using our breath to get us into an altered state of consciousness, because our breath is so intuitive and it's so medicinal. And it's like when we use it in a connected pattern of way, when we use it with intention and purpose to literally like either clear our mind or to clear anxiety from our body, or, just depending on how long we get to play together in that way with our breath and our body. It's like it really does pull the cosmos and the body together. It's like we pull all of it together. It's like an active meditation. I describe it as a meditation on steroids, because you're really just in the zone of the unknown, and you're like healing your physical body as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you. And I have been I think I've shared this before. You were a huge part of my healing with the passing of my father. So I will always be grateful for you in that moment. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Well, and I think, we had discussed when I was on your podcast, you're like, I'm kind of in this. So I don't know. I'm sober curious, playing with it, and that was probably, oh my gosh, probably been 6 months by now, but I would love to talk about where you are now on the soberish journey, and maybe even starting with something you shared, which I think ties into the work that you do of this like amazing work about how alcohol for you like grounds you.
Yeah, it
Be-
does.
so tell us a little bit more about using it in that way.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting because I having that conversation with you on my podcast really made me say it out loud what I
Mm,
had been thinking. Like I hadn't really said that out loud before.
yeah.
And I remember being like getting emotional around that. And because I am such a cosmic galactic being, and I really do spend a lot of time in the cosmos.
Mhm.
But yet I am a human being. Like I'm still
Mm,
me. I'm still here in the flesh, even though I spend a lot of time up there. I realized that when I would have experiences, like I love a good IPA and I
mm,
love a good glass of wine or a really yummy tequila or bourbon, like if I am having anything, I like it to be really good. Like I'm just
yeah.
like it's got to be good, good, good. But I would notice that after like a really deep experience or something, I'd be like, I just want a beer. I mean, I just want
Mm,
a good IPA. And I would in that same moment like judge myself
mm,
for wanting an alcohol. I'm like, oh my God, like I just did this incredibly gorgeous spiritual
yeah.
experience. Like, why am I turning to alcohol right now?
Mm,
And
mhm.
then I realized that it really was because I wanted. It's not that I needed. I wanted
Mm, yeah.
to feel like a human being. It really helped that like just a beer would help ground me
Mm,
back into my body, back into my human
yeah.
existence. And like once I realized that, it just gave me so much more permission. It's not like I'm
Mhm.
drinking 10 beers,
Yeah.
like I would just have a beer and enjoy it and it would
Mhm.
feel grounded and like a human.
Yes. Because as much as you are you love to be up there and that's your space, like you still have to human, right?
Yeah.
You've got to pay your bills, you have to like show up
Yeah.
for your kids, you still have to like be this human. So that makes sense that it kind of
Yeah.
puts you back in that
Yeah,
space.
and I noticed like a few weeks ago, I did not wanna have like, I had, like, a bit I think I just hosted, like, a big class or something,
Mm.
and I was like, "Whoa, that was a lot." I mean, all in the best way possible, but I
Yeah.
was like, "Whoa, that's a lot." And I didn't really want any alcohol, but instead, I, like, gorged myself on food. I was just
Mm,
like, "Give me all the food." So, because eating in that particular instance, it was like it just grounded me. It made me feel like
mhm.
I'm gonna eat Doritos and I don't know. There's just something about
Right.
like that just makes you can, like we all just want to feel like, but again, it's like, well, why does that make you feel like a human? Is it the
Yeah.
conditioned beliefs,
Right.
And so then you go into a whole other little wormhole there. And it's like, oh, well, why is that your thing? Like, why not just go sit out in the ground and
Yeah.
ground yourself? Well,
Yeah.
that's not fun. I want a beer.
A beer is way better than that. Well, but I think too, it is. Do you believe that alcohol resonates at a lower energy?
Absolutely.
So do you think that's part of it? It like just the resonate. It just kind of like it
Yeah.
is a mechanic to bring you
It
down.
literally, like, for me personally,
Hmm.
because I'm here, my
Yeah.
energy is up here working literally in the cosmos. Um, and a beer is down, alcohol is down here. It
Hmm.
literally just helps like bring me back down,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so on that note, yes,
Yeah.
alcohol brings you down,
Right.
it changes and shifts your energy. Um, so it really just for me has to do with being conscious of it,
Hmm.
like really being mindful of why am I
Hmm.
desiring this, and does it bring me joy, like in a place from my place where I really know myself? Am I like
Hmm.
I'm not searching for something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not drinking to cover up anything or to mask
Mhm.
anything, like to dim my feelings. I'm literally doing it to like relax my body, to like
Yeah.
come back into my body.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that makes and so fascinated. I don't think I shared this. was like a month or two ago, I was talking with a woman who she's a coach. She's phenomenal, like real, not in the exact work you do, but real like energy aware, conscious. And she said for her drinking does like stabilize her, it grounds her a little. And it was so funny. I was like, oh my gosh, Vaughn said the same thing, that it
That,
was more of like it just kind of like makes me feel like human.
yes.
So I think that's really fascinating. Well, and you shared, that feeling of its grounding. How do you personally know the difference between when you're doing it for that versus for searching for something, for covering something up, for a purpose? Like, how do you know for you the difference in those?
Well, I think at this point in my relationship with myself,
Mm,
I have so many beautiful tools
mm,
that have helped me navigate through difficult times like anxiety or
mhm.
different levels of emotion. So for me at this point in my life, I trust myself. Like I know that if
Mhm.
I'm feeling something that I need to feel it, how important it
Yeah,
is for me to, not go over it, but to go through
yeah,
it and be
yeah.
like, oh, all right, let's go into the meat of whatever is coming up for me, whatever emotion, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And when I say emotion, I mean it could be just grief, heartache,
Mm,
fear, disappointment,
yeah.
just just all
Mhm,
there's so many layers of pain and suffering that we allow ourselves, but
mhm.
and I just want to note too, like there is a difference between pain and suffering. Like suffering is
Mhm.
choice. Suffering is something we hold on to, and pain is inevitable. Like we're all going to experience pain in our life. So it's just a matter of how we allow ourselves to move through it. So are you going to
Yeah.
move through it like by drinking through it, or like and hoping one day it'll pass or pretending like
Mhm.
it's not there? Or are you like literally going to go into it, in with that inner faith that
Mm.
you can, on the other side of it, you can handle it? And so that's where I'm at my phase in my life. Like I know I can, like as tough as because
Yeah.
I know, I mean, I'm got a lifetime ahead of me of pain and heartache.
Mm. Yeah.
But I also know that I'm not going to drink my way through it. I'm going to
Mm.
allow myself to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, after I feel, and if I just want to feel like a human being again, good job, Vaughn. Like
Yeah.
you allowed yourself to process through this really,
Yeah.
and this is how I really want to like just feel like me after I've done the the deeper work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really just about self-trust. And at this point,
Mhm.
I really do trust myself of why I'm
Mhm.
to have a alcoholic beverage. Um, and just yeah, so it really has a lot to do with trust, I feel like.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the older we get, the more we get to cultivate more self-trust.
Mhm.
Like I have daughters right now that are 15 and
Mm.
17, and I know that they're going to be making decisions that are far out of alignment of who they really are, right? Like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
even 10 years ago, I was making really shitty decisions that
Yeah.
were far, I mean, okay, 5 years ago, I was still doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, and to be completely honest, just the other night, I was usually my husband and I, if we have like a glass of wine, like we'll open up
Mhm.
a bottle of wine and we'll split it, and he'll have two glasses and I'll have two glasses. Actually, he usually has more than me because he's not quite as like aware of his alcohol intake. But I know, how I want to feel the
Yeah. Yeah.
day and all that stuff. Well, he decided to like not have the wine with me and have a glass of bourbon instead. And
Mm.
so then there was like this whole bottle of wine, and I was like, I had my two glasses, and then I was like, oh, well, I'll just have another little bit.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
that extra little bit, I
Mm.
felt like crap the next day. I was
Just
like,
that little
oh,
bit.
on, like, come on now, girl, you know better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like, I know better. I did it and I had a reminder. I forgave
Mhm.
myself. I didn't sit in the shame
Yeah.
for, I was like, well, damn it, Vaughn. Look what you
Come on, Vaughn, you knew better.
So I mean, yeah, so it's just it is what it is. And when we make it something so much bigger than what it is,
Mm.
or
Mhm.
more shameful or,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
all that, then you're holding on to, then that creates more toxicity in your body than what the alcohol ever even
Oh my
created in the
gosh.
first place.
Yeah. I've said that so many times. I'm like, there were so many times. There were a lot of times it was the booze that made me feel like crap. But there were so many times it was, I'm not going to drink. And then I had a drink and a half and I woke up like, you said you weren't going to do that.
Yeah.
Or that extra, like you said, that extra little bit that you're like, I didn't need it. Like, and that sits with you longer than the booze
Yes,
does.
exactly. Well, you can, we allow it. So in that moment, right? Like we have a choice.
Hmm.
Am I gonna like sit in my shit or am
Yeah.
I going to, okay, all right,
Yeah.
you are, I feel like we're so freaking hard on ourselves.
Oh, I
I
know.
mean,
I
like,
know.
it's like, okay, Vaughn, you're still a human. All right.
Yeah.
Like, we're all
Yeah.
still human. We're all still doing the best that we can. We're still trying to learn these lessons. And,
Hmm.
we'll learn eventually and when it's time. Like,
Yeah.
it'll sink in,
Yeah.
like when we're really supposed to.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that because that is, and I'm like, if it worked to be so hard on ourselves, it would work. Like it doesn't work, right? Like we still make that, like we beat ourselves up in that place of like, we know better, we do better.
Yeah.
And I've thought so many times, I'm like, gosh, what would your life look like if you would have changed 5 years ago? I was like, but I wasn't ready. I didn't have the awareness. I didn't know in my heart. It was like that wasn't even an option for me 5 years ago or 10 or three,
Right.
right? Like I didn't know it. And I
Yeah.
love what you said too about like drinking through it. Like
Mm,
we don't drink. We just like push it down the road, right? You're just like, you think
right.
you're like, I'll just medicate this way. And you're like, oh, all I'm doing is pushing the healing
Mhm. Yeah.
further down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what it is it is a Band-Aid, you know?
Hmm.
And so that's where that conscious drinking
Hmm. Yeah.
is really, okay, well, why do I wanna have this drink?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really when I am wanting a drink.
Mhm.
Oh, and I wanted to tell you too, you really inspired me with the mocktails, like,
Oh, yeah.
whenever if it's like kind of a random night and I know I'm like craving something, but I really don't
Mhm.
want anything. I don't need it or want it. I will make like myself like a fun mocktail. And
Mhm.
it has really helped me so many, even if it's just crushed ice with grapefruit juice and soda
Yes.
water and a
Yeah.
lime, like all of a sudden, like I feel so, okay, I'm happy.
It's just like a little treat,
Yeah,
right?
it really is. So that really did help me a
Oh,
lot
good.
just to put it
Yeah.
into perspective for myself of like
Mhm.
the why
Yeah.
and and if I just wanted to hold something and just like have something yummy, then
Mhm.
have something hold something and have something yummy.
Yes. Yes. Look, it gets you a nice heavy cocktail glass or a nice, wine glass, right? I get really not snippy, but I'm very particular at restaurants. I was like, I do not want my mocktail in a red plastic cup.
Yeah.
I want it and you can give me less. I'll pay for full, but I want it in a real mocktail. I don't want to feel
Yeah.
like a child with the water at
Yeah.
their place. Like, give it to me. Well, I
Yeah.
love that idea of like, why am I drinking? Right. Because I think that's so what it's all about, that conscious choice of like, because for me, what I hear you is when you have this huge event and you just want a beer, like that is a celebration. That is a grounding. That is not I've had a really shitty day
You're
and I don't
right.
want to talk to my spouse about it because I'm mad at them and I'm going to have like 2 glasses of wine. Like those are two separate avenues to use booze.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about shame and guilt, right? That's
Yeah. So
especially for you as a healer, as a cosmos, like I'm curious for you,
I
how does that come up?
know.
The
Yeah.
pressure.
So that was it was really hard for me. Because I've really struggled with this whole soberish. I haven't
Mhm.
struggled, but I've been aware of it,
Mhm.
like soberish, like and our conversation we had on my podcast, I was saying how my husband did the 75 hard thing and he didn't
Mhm.
drink for 75 days. And he was like, don't drink, to like do it with me. I'm like, no, I have no desire to not drink for 75 days. Like
Yeah.
that's on you. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And then it made me think like, why?
Mm.
Why do I not want that? And it
Yeah.
really challenged me. And it made me feel, like being a spiritual teacher and
Mhm.
healer in these, like, why, Vaughn, do you need alcohol? And it really did
Mm.
like it brought up a lot of like shame and guilt for me.
Mm.
And so really navigating through that, I was like, what is this really about? You know?
Yeah.
So that was interesting for me to witness myself in
Mm.
in that conflict. And then that's really about the time that you and I had a conversation after
Yeah.
that. And I was like, oh, okay, it's because I really enjoy my
Mm.
beer to help
Yeah.
ground me, you know? So I mean, I certainly could. It's just
Yeah.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
you know, like go 75 days without a beer or a
Mhm.
glass of wine, you
Yeah.
know? So but over it's interesting, like in my healing journey, guilt and shame are the lowest vibrational
Mm.
energies that we can hold on to. I mean, like as we're on a path of expanding our vibration, if we are holding on to guilt and shame, that is the lowest thing. Like we literally cannot rise to the levels that we desire to rise to when we're holding on to those lower density energies.
Mm. Yeah.
So, you know, in my journey, I mean, because I just had like my spiritual awakening 7 years ago at 40
Mhm.
years old. So it's been a really intense 7 year journey for me in undoing
Mm.
undoing just a lot of old stuff, like
Mm. Yeah.
old decisions, you know, like when I was younger and I would drink a lot. I mean, because I was a healthy partier, you know, like
Mhm.
I'm your
Same, same.
average woman that's like, hey, yeah, woo, let's party. Um, and so that, you know, when you drink, associated with that are choices, you know,
Yeah.
like choices that you make under the influence that, you know, like I would go out, I would get drunk, I would hook up with boys, you know, like
Mhm.
I didn't have a husband until I was 30. So I had plenty of time to
Yeah.
party and hook up with randos, right?
Mhm.
That was a huge part of my healing journey was letting go of
Mhm.
all the shame and all the guilt that I carried through all those years, you
Mhm.
know, and it was there, and I did not even know that it was there until I began the healing journey, and I just had layers and layers
Mhm.
and layers of shit that I was working
Mhm.
through, and I was like, "Wow," like, you know, because it's not like anything ever super traumatic ever happened to me, you know, but when you hold on to things, that is the trauma in itself. So
Yeah.
I was holding on to all those shameful decisions
Mm.
that I could justify, you know, because I was being a 20 whatever year old person, being just a normal 20-year-old
Yeah.
girl, you know. So to really work, and it's like once you work through that layer of emotions and you can feel the freedom that it brings to you on the other side of that work,
Mhm. Mhm.
very rarely do you want to add anything back to that.
'Cause you know what it feels like.
You
You're
know
very
it
clear
feels
on what it
and how
is.
much work it
Yeah.
took you to get rid of it, and so, like, when you feel that heaviness come back in your body, you're just like, "Oh, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want this, so I'm just gonna let it go. I'm gonna
Yeah.
let it go right now." And so then you begin to make smarter choices and decisions because you just don't wanna hold on to that level of
Mhm.
pain anymore.
Yeah.
You don't wanna
Oh,
carry it.
that's beautiful. What did you think? Because you said, like, you had that guilt and shame, but it was, like, probably years till you, like what did you think it was, or did you even know it was there at all?
Yeah, I really didn't know it was there,
Yeah.
and that's where the layers come into play
Yeah.
because, you know, we carry things and then it's like, "Oh, but it's fine." And then, you know, you keep repeating the pattern, repeating the pattern, repeating the pattern,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's fine." And then all of a sudden you're 43 years old with
Yeah.
gut health because you've got so much
Mhm.
unprocessed emotion and guilt and shame that your body is holding on to because that's the way your body manifests
Mhm.
emotions is through gut health first. I mean, anything that is unprocessed comes through as dis-ease in the body. That's how it will show up in your body. Um so just, you know, that's how it was for me, and I was like, oh, and then
Mm.
I was like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god. You
Every
know.
layer, you're like, "Oh, no, there's more. Oh, goodness, no, there's more." Well, and you talk about And I think the biggest disservice that we as a society or mental health healers, whatever we want to call ourselves, have done is like we're stepping to it now. It's like those little traumas, right? Like we sit there and think that our traumas don't matter because we weren't XYZ, right? We're not comparing it, but like all those little ones, and then you like push down, you're like, it's definitely not as bad as that. I can't complain. Like it's just life, it happens, and then we don't deal with it. And then
Yep.
that guilt and shame just begets more guilt and shame. And then we can sometimes medicate with alcohol, which is low vibe. And
Yep.
then it just this like
It continues
petri
to
dish of
cycle. Yeah.
shit that just like grows.
Yeah.
And it's
It
just,
really does.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, one thing I have been thinking of recently, I just heard this statistic and I was like, oh, and it was that alcohol stays in your system for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh God. I was like, jeez, Louise, that seems aggressive.
Well, that seems a lot. Well, and I think that's why it is, right? Is it's hard to ever get out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it just stays
Right.
in there and then you want more and then or you do quit for like a week and you're like, "Well, I don't feel better," but it's like still in your system. So you're like, "Well, it's not
Yeah.
alcohol. I could just keep on
Right.
drinking."
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that is something that is
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, like, because I do like a lot of my experiences are on the weekends, like my
yeah.
classes that I host or anything like that. So if I know I've got a big event the next day, then I'm like, well, I'm not gonna have anything because I'm super
Yeah.
clear about my intention and my purpose and being an open
Mm, yeah.
holy vessel for holy healing spirit to move through me. And so when I'm thinking about my vessel and my body,
Yeah.
that is another way that alcohol really can mess with, like, for me,
Yeah.
personally. So if I'm like, if so, that's why I noticed that I prefer it after, because before, like, I don't want
Mm,
or need anything because
yeah.
I'm so excited about my class the next day or whatever the next day. So I'm really conscious to do, to be clean and
Yeah.
clear. And so I guess that's why, like, the 2-week thing bothered me. I was like, oh,
Mm,
well, I don't want it to be there for 2 weeks.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm curious, this just came to me. When
Yeah.
you
I'm
are
just having like like it's a drink. I'm not having
right.
so many, but still, it does make you just like think like,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. Well, and I think like you said, there's probably different levels of it, right? Like, but it's like you could probably get pulled over for DUI after one glass of wine and you don't feel it in your body, right? So I think it's probably like low key, but I do think probably, and this is something I need to research more, habitual use like is gonna
yeah,
probably stay in yours. It's like the
yeah,
buildup of it. Like one drink is probably
yeah. Okay, yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
But
okay.
also, like, it's probably different for everybody, right? Because for
Right.
me, I thought I was just, like, an edgy person. Like, I thought that was my personality. I thought
Uh,
it was somebody that was just a little, like and I was like,
edgy.
"Oh, no." It was just because I had booze in my system.
Oh,
Not all day, every day, but I think I had just, like, the
built
low-key
in.
anxiety it caused me from
Right.
years of drinking that
Yeah.
I was like, "I can still be a little type A, a little edgy." Like, that's still a little bit a part of my personality, but not to the level it was.
Right. Yeah.
Um Well, and tell me first of all, you're amazing. I love we could talk for hours.
Okay, good, thank
I love your monthly energy report. You talk about where everything's in alignment. It's amazing. You and Dana get
you. Yeah.
together. So we'll definitely link to your podcast. I'm curious, like, and I'm going to get this all wrong because I have no like 1/10 of what you know. Like when the planets are aligned a certain way, would it cause us to maybe seek alcohol for certain things? Like, tell us a little bit about like how that looks.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes, the astrological stars and the lineups for sure can
Mm,
play a huge impact of you feeling like you need to drink, because when you are
mhm,
going through this shit astrologically, you are, you're like, what is wrong with me? Like, oh my
mhm,
gosh, like, because you're being triggered. And I remember at the beginning of this year, 2023 has been a real doozy
mm,
for me, and it started right in January, and I turns out I was going through like my Chiron returns, which I'd never heard of my Chiron
Yeah.
returns. I'd, been dabbling in astrology, but I'd never heard of that. Well, this is like the wounded healer. It hits you right when you're about 50, which I just turned 50 this year. And so I was like, literally, my Chiron was being very highlighted by, it was in a certain planet that made it very like, you're in the thick of it right now. And I didn't know that though at the time. And I was like, what the hell, Vaughn? Like I was being super edgy and triggered and emotional, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And I was definitely wanting to drink more because I, like, my normal little tools were not supporting. I was like, I had a really bad day. I want to have a drink. But then of course have some wisdom in that.
Yeah.
And but why do you want to drink, Vaughn? Like, it's a Tuesday night. Why do you want to drink?
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have the drink, but it would still be super painful, like going through all the stuff. And then I had a guest on my podcast talking about astrology. And she was like, did you know you're in your Chiron returns? And she told me everything, validated everything that I'd been going through. And I was like, thank God. Like I'm not completely losing my mind, but when you are being faced up against things that are there to teach you, okay, everything that we experience in the cosmos are there. Each new moon, each full moon, every phase of the moon, every sign that you are, like all of your things that are in the certain planets, like Cancer sun. When my Cancer sun is in a certain planet, then it's like I am being challenged with intention and purpose. I was born into that sign and at that time so that my soul could be faced, with this challenge so that I could grow through it. Not avoid it, not bypass it, but grow through it. And we have all of this our entire life, and we're just so disconnected from it. Therefore, we go to the alcohol. It's like, I don't know why I'm losing my mind right now. But if you knew your astrology, then it'd be like, oh, it's because of this, like, oh, that makes, and then we can be so much more gentle with ourselves. Like, she told me that about my Chiron. It was like, oh, thank God, and it just gave me so much more like peace. Like, of course, that's why I've been just in a hot mess.
Right.
So absolutely. Understanding what is happening in your astrological chart and in the cosmos, or when there's eclipses and stuff like that. Because we're being challenged.
Yeah.
And when we're being challenged is usually when we go to the alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Cause I think there's so many things that I work with clients on, right? Like you're working on your hormones, your stress levels, but now you're talking about the plant. Like there's so many factors to take in to be like,
so many.
Why do I want to drink so bad? Like, this is crazy. And they'd be like, no. What is going on? What am I feeling? That consciousness, that intention. And at the foremost is the kindness, right? To yourself to be like, let's just explore this. Maybe I decide I have a glass of wine and that's okay. Like, but that kindness and awareness of like, oh yeah, no wonder all the signs are doing whatever they're doing. So it makes sense that I'm feeling nuts.
Exactly. It really literally gives such a permission slip to why you're feeling the way that you're feeling.
Yes.
And then, when you don't know why you're feeling the way, that's when you go seeking outside validation, or like through alcohol, like you're like, make me feel better. But really no amount of alcohol will make you feel better. Obviously it will only make you feel worse. When you're in the thick of some shit, like when your soul is like, all right, girl, we're, this is in this place and this is an alignment for you to learn and grow through.
It feels like pain, but it's a gift, right? It's such a gift. Like
it's a gift. Yes.
You're like, no.
I know. I love it so much. People are like, you are a sick woman. Because I love the pain. I love going through the pain because I know on the other side of that is freedom. And that is what we all want and desire is just freedom so that we are not attached to the past and we are not fearful of the future. We are just experience inner peace and freedom. But that takes work.
Well, what I love too about what you've said, I think through this whole thing is you can't drink your way through it. You can't force your way through it. Like, being sober to deal with this gift that you're getting to like reevaluate to find this freedom. And then what I've heard from you is like, then maybe the drink is a celebration of that, but
Yeah,
not using the drink to medicate because we
yeah,
don't drink through it. It feels good for a minute, but we're just putting
yeah.
off the inevitable.
Yeah,
Um,
and going back to the shame really quick, like
yeah.
if you want to have a drink to celebrate, but then you're associating shame with it, like, oh,
Mm,
I told myself I
yeah.
wouldn't drink, or I'm not allowed to
Mhm.
drink. You know, if I had told myself I wasn't allowed to drink and I really like wanted it, and like that would make me feel so much worse in the
Mhm.
moment. Like me
Mhm.
allowing myself to have a beer is actually so much more
Yes.
healthy than me not allowing, because if I don't allow it, then that means I'm just associating it with shame and guilt.
Yeah. It's a
And
conscious choice to have
shame
it.
and guilt is in my body. Alcohol's
Mhm.
not in my body, but shame and guilt is, because I'm like, I can't have it. That's not appropriate for me to have it. That's
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
but that's me putting a judgment on thing. And I like really try to live with an open heart of
Yeah.
no, of unconditional love. And so if that requires me, having unconditional love for my choices, no matter what
Mhm.
they may be, then
Yeah.
I'm allowing myself to have
Yeah.
that choice, right, of
Right.
unconditional love.
Right. And what
But
I heard too is that a conscious choice that's in alignment, that's in
yeah,
value, right? Like it's not just this, but I 100% agree. I think it's if you're spending all your time with shame and guilt about drinking or not drinking, and then also so much mind
yeah,
space around it, you're like, that defeats the purpose. But
yeah,
also being really conscious of, is there an intention in this drink? Does it
yes.
serve the person I want to be?
Yes, yeah, because the word joy, like
Mhm.
it brings me joy to have, like if I just did something amazing and I want to have a alcoholic beverage,
Yeah.
like I'm doing it because it's joyful for me.
Mhm.
So I would rather feel that than the shame of not having it, like the shame
Mm,
that's
yeah.
associated with not having it, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's bad. But I'm like, but if I have the one, it's gonna bring me joy and it's
Yeah.
gonna make me
Yeah.
happy, and I choose that.
Yeah, and you said that feels different than I'm feeling some stuff coming up for me, I'm gonna go have a
Absolutely.
bottle of wine, like, those are 2 different choices,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Well, a couple questions, and again, I could talk to you for hours, but if somebody is what would your advice be for somebody who is maybe a healer like yourself, right? Somebody who's really spiritual and soulful, but is starting to be like, "I don't know if drinking's for me," or
Yeah.
maybe starting something you would share with them?
Yeah, I mean that self-sovereignty is
Mm,
very important, of honoring where, because we really get a lot of outside
mm,
input and information from outside
yeah,
sources. But when you are attuned to you and your heart space and your own intuition, which if you are, well, we all have this ability, right? But if,
mhm.
especially if you're like in the healing arts, and working with energy, like you're pretty connected to your intuition.
Yeah, yeah.
Like what's right or wrong. Just like for
Mhm.
me, that I went through that stage where I was like, there was that like, I want a beer, but I feel guilty about it because I
Mm,
am a spiritual
yeah,
healer leader. And so there was like a time frame where I was challenging myself,
yeah.
where I had to question my who, what, why, when action choices,
Mhm,
all that stuff. And so, but through allowing myself to explore that gave me the answers of my
mhm,
true self-sovereignty, of like what I actually did want for me, Vaughn. It wasn't about what any other spiritual healers or teachers were doing. It was what
yeah,
I wanted,
mhm,
what I needed in my life. And so I really got very clear and self-sovereign in that place,
mhm,
and really make decisions, all decisions, alcohol and anything and everything,
mhm,
that place of self-sovereignty.
mm. Well, I love that too, like, you sat what we talked earlier, like, maybe the plans were aligned and it was like, "Hey, Vaughn, you need to work on this," like, focus on this, like, sitting with it, dealing with it, questioning, curiosity, kindness, and then this place of self-sovereignty, and then you're like, "Okay, this is my Vaughn Piero's journey. It's not
Yeah.
Holly's. It's not anybody else.
And I would like to add, I and everyone else has the right to change our mind at
Mhm.
any moment.
Mhm.
You know, like I could wake up next week and be like, I'm gonna try not drinking and
Yeah.
just, you know, like, and I have that right. If that is what
Mhm.
the intuitive download, if I'm being honest and true to myself, and
Yeah.
that is like a true message that I receive for myself, then I will, you know, explore that.
Yeah.
And if it's uncomfortable, I'll explore that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And so I have the right to change my mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only one you have to be accountable for to is yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And then last but not least, what does soberish mean to you?
Soberish means conscious drinking. You know,
Mhm.
like I, instead of being a drinker, I'd like to say, but again, like when I say that, it makes me, I don't ever want to be
Mhm.
disrespectful to people that are sober because I am so aware
Yeah.
of um, the self-discipline that it
Mhm.
takes
Yeah.
to be sober.
Yeah.
You know, so it's almost like to me, I don't even want to say that I'm sober-ish because I feel like
Mhm.
that's a little disrespectful to people that really are sober.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, because I'm not that disciplined.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's like I don't disrespect the people that are really working and cultivating that level
Mhm.
of discipline. So soberish to me means being conscious of
Mhm.
every single decision that I make when it involves alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, Vaughn, thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
such a treat. I will post in the show notes how to get a hold of you, how to tune into your podcast. I love it. It's one of my favorites. So
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for joining me. Thank you for sharing your sober-ish story and talking about this
much.
intention and consciousness and as
And
treating your vessel with love and care. So
And
thank
I
you.
just want to add thank you for your voice and your
Mhm.
wisdom, and because you really do inspire me. I'm like, you kind of help keep me in check. It's like, oh yeah, you know, so I just want to
Mhm.
acknowledge you and thank you
Mhm.
for your continuing to show
Mhm.
up and to share vulnerably in the way that you do.
Mhm.
So thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Thank you. I received that. So. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Please be sure to leave us a review, share with a friend, and remember everything you want is on the other side of saying no to that drink. Have a good
Yep.
day.